So speaking of a failure to launch, this week, Matthew McConaughey, who is in a movie called Failure to Launch, if you're not connecting those dots, Matthew McConaughey put on this giant event called The Art of Living. Not living, because that would not be very McConaughey of him. Livin apostrophe. I love Matthew McConaughey. I watched a lot of this. To be completely transparent, I did not watch all of it. I think I watched all of McConaughey's speech, but The Art of Living was streamed to over 2 million people, as reported by Matthew McConaughey at the beginning of the broadcast. It was produced at a super high level. You could get a link and like be there in the Zoom audience, or you could just stream it on YouTube. I looked this morning. It's actually been pulled off of YouTube. So I guess the stream was just up for a limited amount of time. But he was joined by some of like the top self-help gurus, including Tony Robbins, who is like the biggest self-help guy maybe ever in the history of the world. And it was really interesting. It was very well done in some sense. Matthew McConaughey was on like McConaughey level 10. Okay. He's always like, all right, all right, all right. But this one was like literally the intro was him playing his bongos, right? So it was McConaughey level 1 million, which is exactly what you would want out of Matthew McConaughey. And he's kind of become this like stoic, Austin philosopher, and he has a lot of videos that he puts out with these self-help tidbits. And I read his book Green Lights, and I actually listened to it on Audible, and it's read by him. It's really enjoyable. It's a good book, and he talks in there about his faith and the church that he attends. And so I know that he has a spiritual background to this, but self-help always just falls short. It doesn't address the deepest needs that we actually have. And there are some people who are kind of in their feelings about this event. It was really cool. And if you listen to the whole thing, it would be very helpful for you, because these are smart guys who have a lot of wisdom. And whether or not they directly address it, they are pulling from ancient wisdom and packaging it in a way that you can apply it to your life in some real sense. And some people felt like the whole thing was kind of an advertisement, because towards the end of McConaughey's piece, then it was like, and you can buy this, package, and then you can really learn how to live. And it's normally $4,000, but today we'll give it to you for only $400. And so some people kind of felt like they were bamboozled, and the whole thing was just like a 3-hour marketing campaign. But this thing was everywhere, and all over social media. McConaughey was like rhyming, and I couldn't get on Instagram, I couldn't get on Twitter without getting an advertisement for The Art of Living. And it was McConaughey giving like his McConaugheyisms, it's like my friends Rascal Flatts say, life is a highway and I'm gonna ride it all night, all night, all night. Like some kind of McConaughey-ism, right? And he got a lot of people to it, and it was really good. And I do think it was good, and I got a lot out of it. But at the same time, I couldn't fight just this reality that it doesn't go deep enough. At the very beginning of it, if you watched it, Matthew McConaughey asked some really pointed questions like, why are we here? Like, not why are we on this live stream, but why are we on planet Earth? Like, what are we doing here? What is our purpose? How do we advance in life? And those are all questions that can't be answered just through the lens of self-help, because those are questions that require a transcendent grounding. Why are we here? Well, we're here for purpose. Any good self-help person will tell you that. You got to discover your purpose. But why? Why is living a life of purpose better than living a life of non-purpose? And you can't really answer that without pointing to some kind of transcendent grounding. We are here to advance, but how is advancement measured? The problem of self-help, when removed from a transcendent grounding, is it leads almost inevitably to some form of narcissism. And this is like just kind of by nature of self-help, because it forces you to look at yourself and to spend all of your time focused on yourself. And there is time for that. And even at MetaChurch, I mean, we have one of our most powerful programs, which is to help you look at the story of your life. However, with the transcendent grounding, the purpose of looking at your life is to understand all of the things that are keeping you stuck or leading you astray, so that you can come to terms with those, redeem those, and then point your life outwards towards the help of other people, like every single moment of every day. And often what you get in self-help is it ends up very selfish. As a matter of fact, one of the key points of The Art of Living is to be more selfish. And I know what he was meaning by it, but it's just bad advice, because part of why is because as a preacher, I know this. You're going to say what you mean, and then people are just going to hear what they want. So when you say be more selfish, whatever you say after that could just be thrown out the window. And it was like, be more selfish, think more about your legacy, think more about what you're doing, think more about your impact. And by being selfish, you'll actually be more selfless. The problem is when you're just focused on self, it does lead to narcissism. And this has been shown psychologically. Jordan Peterson talks a lot about these studies where thinking about yourself is like the exact same thing neurologically and psychologically as being miserable. Selfishness is like exactly equivalent to misery. And it just spirals into anxiety and spirals into depression because we weren't meant to just think about ourselves all of the time. And yet, we do need to work on our life and we do need to be challenged. And so I think like the best place to go for this is the ancient wisdom of scripture. And you'll see this all the time. It's pointing you at yourself and it's pointing you at the things that you're doing or not doing, but then it's always pointing your life out. I had a mentor who would talk about the difference between centrifugal force and centripetal force. Centrifugal force, you could tell I'm a scientist because I don't even know how to say these words. Centrifugal force is where something moves inwards. It spirals in on itself like the flushing of a toilet. That is centrifugal force, I think. And if you're a scientist and I'm wrong, then just switch these in your mind and still get the point. Centripetal force is where something moves out and out and out. It's always pointed out. And the problem with self-help is it often creates this centrifugal uh, oh man, I've bitten off more than I could chew here. A centrifugal force where all that you are and all of your thoughts and all of your emotions are just focused inwards and they are spiraling down deeper and deeper into you and deeper into narcissism. And what scripture does is it addresses you and it addresses your deepest needs and it addresses your deepest desires and it addresses your false narratives and it addresses your worst pain, but it takes all of that at a central point and it starts moving it centripetally outwards and outwards and outwards and uses your life to go out. And the more that you take who you are and the discovering of your purpose and the bettering of your worst ways and use it for the people outside of you, then you will actually experience the significance that you're looking for. Philippians 2, 3, and 4, the Apostle Paul wrote, "Do nothing out of selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility consider others as more important than yourself." This is the way to live. This is the way to experience the wholeness and the fulfillment and the impact that we're also desperately wanting in our life. Verse 4 says, everyone should look not to his own interests, but rather to the interests of others. This is like completely different than what our self-help world will tell us. Self-help tells you you should love yourself. And there is a place for that. Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. And a lot of us, we're so disgusted by ourselves and we're so disgusted because we know ourselves better than anyone else knows us. And we know how far we have fallen short of our potential and we know all of our worst ways and we know how toxic our thoughts can get. And so, yes, like some of us need to realize that we have value, but our value does not come from looking inside. Our value comes from looking at something transcendent. And in the Christian faith, our value comes from looking at a God who loved us enough to put skin in the game, literally come to this earth and die on a cross in our place to show us in like blinding neon sign that we are valuable. We're so valuable that our God was willing to give up his life for us. In Luke 9, Jesus is talking. He said to all, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross and follow me. Sounds very different than the self-help mantras of today. Deny yourself. Self-help is often like, what is your deepest desire? What are your deepest attractions? What are your deepest dreams? And this is more like, what are the dreams for your life that can make a difference for everyone? What is something you could give your life to that would be bigger than yourself? Deny yourself. And in the pursuit of denying yourself of your base passions, denying yourself of the parts of you that just want and can never be fulfilled, you will actually find fulfillment that you can't even imagine. But yet, again, this is very different. Christ's call to the art of living, it isn't like go and be selfish and find your own way. And let me be really clear, that's not what Matthew McConaughey's thing said. That was like one piece of it that I'm pulling out. So let me be fair to that. It was really good, and I actually think you would probably enjoy watching it. I do just find it interesting that the call of the gospel is not the art of living, It's more like the art of dying. How do you die to yourself? How do you wake up every day instead of this centrifugal force just kind of flushing your life away? You actually just aim your life out towards helping other people. You take all that you are and even your baggage and even your pain, and you find a way to serve others with it. This is what Paul wrote to the church in Rome. And Rome is like kind of a good stand-in for the West today because it was very advanced and it was very prosperous. He says, I appeal to you, therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship. And those two words that he wrote in the original Greek, it's like your very obvious duty. Giving up of yourself, sacrificing of yourself is your very obvious duty. He goes on to say, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. So, how do you help yourself? You allow God to renew your mind, to give you a fresh vision, to give you a fresh picture of life. You know what we talked about earlier, these big audacious goals, this vision to line your life up to? You need that. And you need to unify all of those lead measures, all of those check boxes towards that end of what you want to do. And you want to be bold and go public with it. But at the same time, if you really want to experience something, then you have to realize unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. Line your life up to something that's not just big and audacious and impactful, but that has transcendent bearing beyond this life and into eternity. And he says, let your mind be transformed that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, the good, acceptable, and perfect will. And this is where I just think self-help falls short because there's no way to test it. And you could listen to the entire art of living and you could get your life all lined up and you could get your life all right. And you could have all the McConaughey-isms. But how do you test it? There were 2 million people watching. So it's like, what is your purpose? And how are you going to be selfishly selfless? And what's like, how do you know that the purpose you put in place for your life is good or helpful or going to lead to the flourishing of your family, or going to make your marriage better, or going to make your life better? How do you test it? And the answer is you test it against something transcendent, against the ancient wisdom that has been handed down to us in scripture that has led to the flourishing of families and the flourishing of life for like all of time, and especially the last 2,000 years after Jesus came in and embodied those teachings and showed us how to live